Good morning, friends and fellow traders. This is Doug Campbell with Right Way Options, and this is the morning market prep video for March 13th, 2024. Well, hope everyone had a great day. Pretty darn interesting day with some new record highs coming into play, even as we saw our inflation numbers go higher and our bond yields going higher. As a matter of fact, they're even higher again this morning. Kind of an interesting circumstance here in the market. Is it right? Or is the market right? Or are we overpricing our market dramatically? I guess we'll wait and see. First off, let's take a look at what happened overnight. First off, we had Asian markets, mostly lower overnight, but mixed. We saw another sell-off coming in the Nikkei, and then just small declines in Hong Kong and Shanghai, while South Korea and Asian markets were just slightly higher. European markets are up across the board this morning, but they are modestly up across the board this morning. So we'll want to be watching that carefully as we move through the day. And then, of course, this morning, we're seeing the normal pump coming into the market. Since I have been up just kind of preparing for gathering information, preparing for the video this morning, already seeing futures trying to bounce higher. The only thing that's a little bit lower is NASDAQ here at the moment, just a tiny bit lower. Let's take a look at what we have going in our oil. Oil is moving higher this morning. There was a report suggesting that today we're likely to see supplies decline, and that's got oil up $1.05 at 78.61 a barrel, and Brent is up $1.04 at 82.96 a barrel. Not good for inflation if we continue to see gas prices move higher. Natural gas, however, is down 2.1 cents. If we were to take a look at our bond yields this morning, well, kind of an interesting circumstance here. Our 2-year bonds are at 4.61% this morning. That is substantially higher than it was just yesterday. Our 10-year bonds are at 4.16%. That's up from, I think it was 4.06 or something like that yesterday morning. So about 10 points higher than it was yesterday. And our 10 basis points anyway. And our 30-year at 4.32%, also up from 4.25% yesterday. Even our 3 and 6 month bonds are a little bit higher. The 3-month is 5.38. Our 6-month at 5.31. Quite a inversion there in bonds, and yet the market is so convinced that we're going to be soon cutting rates that they're willing to push us to new record highs, even as our yields and interest rates go higher. So what does all that mean for today? Well, how about we settle in? Let's buckle up. Let's get ready for the Wednesday edition of the Morning Market Prep video. Good morning once again, everyone, and thank you so much for being here. I very much appreciate it. Let's take a look at some charts, how they're setting up for today. And remember, when we do that, we want to shake off a little bit of bias. We want to make sure that we're looking at the charts for what they are, not for what we want them to be. And if we take a look at the diamonds, well, pretty easy to see that the diamond's back in bullish mode. We pushed right through this little downtrend here in the chart. We'll see if we can deal with this resistance if the bulls continue to push. If we can push above that, well, you'll want to notice as I draw this line back across over here, just closing up above that area would give us a new record high close in the diamonds, and there's right now every reason to believe that that is possible. So watch carefully for that. Of course, to get a new record high print, we've got to be above those wicks over here. But the way the market's acting, they don't seem to be too concerned about much of anything, just hurry up and buy. And well, we'll just see how that's going to work out if rates continue to move higher. As if we look to the bearish side, if the bears were to come into play, well, I think a pushback, maybe a pushback down into here, would be a logical place to catch a little bit of price support, that little consolidating area and yesterday's low, pushing back down here to retest this trend, this little downtrend that we had as some support. And if we can bounce off of that, we're still in good shape. But if we were to fall through that area, coming back in here to some price support would be a logical pullback on that chart, and then breaking below there, then once again we're probably pushing down into this area of the chart to retest again to see if they can hold that. If we look at the SPY, very different situation here in the SPY, because the SPY was looking so much better anyway. Found that support in here day before on Monday, found that support, bounced off, new record high close in the SPY yesterday, pushing up as you can see, and every reason to believe that we could push on higher and even get a new record high print here even today, then top out the market again as we continue to run in this upside trend with no fear of rates or anything at all. So blue sky above, if we can pop on through right here, and I can't see any reason in this chart that would suggest that we aren't going to do that, the way the market has been so willingly able to push these, particularly a handful of stocks, much higher in valuation. So watch that closely. And then if the bears were to find inspiration, well, here's where we can maybe, things might get a little bit ugly again. We still, as we continue to stretch this market higher and higher, we continue to set up this chance, if the bears were to attack, a big point move. Right now there's no hint in that in the chart, but if we were to pull back, there is a little price support in there. But just remember, that was a big move yesterday in the SPY, and that would be a fairly big point pullback. And if that were to break on down below there, then I think we're going to come back and test this low and this upside trend. Beyond that point, well, you know what the drill is. Big point moves if we fall below those levels. If we look at our QQQ, if those bulls can continue to find that inspiration today, well, there's every reason to believe that big push that we had in tech yesterday, every reason to believe that we can push right on up here and break that double top and get a new record high in the QQQ. In fact, at this point, person would almost be disappointed that we got all dressed up and worked so hard yesterday despite the yields to go ahead and just push this on through with some tenacity. So I would expect that to occur and get a new record high here as a possibility. And then if we can push beyond that wick right there, we'll have a new record high print in the market as well on the QQQ. If the bears, however, were to find inspiration today and push back, well, if you look in here, there's just not a whole lot of support in price action support until we push back and kind of go back down below or test the low of yesterday's open and pull that back into here. We'll want to watch that pretty closely. That looks like the logical area if the bears were to engage. If they go beyond that, there is a little bit of price support, of course, right in there that we could pull on back, and then I think it's a test in here. As I've said before, you know what happens next. If we were to drop through there, there's a big open gap, and big point moves to the downside are possible if we were to lose this little congestion area here in the Qs. Let's take a look at our Russell. IWM did not really participate yesterday as we would have expected. with such a bullish move. But I think what the reason is because all of that energy poured back into the tech giants and just that select few stocks that drove the indexes so much higher, and that rotation kind of stopped that we had been seeing, kind of helping out the Russell here just a little bit. But as you can see, it is trying to pop just a little bit higher here this morning. Now, one thing you'll want to notice is we have slipped beyond this trend just a bit, and we did break a little bit of price support in that chart. Nothing major, however, so if those bulls find that inspiration, maybe a retest up in here to see if we can pop through that area right there, that double whammy area in that chart, and then beyond that, we'll see if we can push up and retest that major resistance level in the chart. Now, if the bears were to find inspiration here for today, well, we would certainly want to watch that pretty closely, because if we were to start breaking this back down, break yesterday's low here in the chart, then I think we've got a pretty good chance that we're going to be coming down into this area of the chart to test to test some price support hiccups here. So watch that carefully here in the chart. Let's take a look at our VIX. Our VIX had a substantial pullback yesterday. It struggled there for a while, but we did pull back pretty substantially. One of the things that we will want to be watching is we still held on to that little upside trend, but we did give up this price support. So if those bulls continue to find inspiration here today to push on higher, then I would expect a test of this little upside trend and even a break of that area if the market gets another big surge to the upside and doesn't worry about bond yields. So watch carefully here. Maybe we push down into an area like this. If the bears were to find inspiration for today, well, don't be too surprised here as well if we come into this support area and catch a little bit of bounce again, because that's kind of what we've been doing, seesawing around here with just the VIX ever so slightly rising to the upside. Notice we've got this channel going here in the chart, so wouldn't be a major surprise if that were to occur. Let's take a look at our T2122, which is the 4-week new high, new low ratio. And what you're going to notice here yesterday is, although we were extremely bullish in the indexes, we actually had more stocks pulling back yesterday than we did going up, and that's the effect of those big tech giants, where all the money is flowing into a very small number of stocks, pushing those indexes higher. These stocks are so big, they're bigger than most countries in valuation, and produce more money than most countries in the world. And they so dominate the indexes that you could just move a handful of stocks and you can move these indexes right now. So we did have more stocks declining than going up yesterday. But that being said, if those bulls continue to find inspiration today, and why not? We're not quite into the blackout period. We're going to slide into the blackout period here really soon, where corporate buybacks have to stop. But we'll watch this carefully. There is every reason to believe that we could push on higher here in the market and get back up here in the bearish reversal zone. One thing I will have to say, though, is, and I've said this before, in my total more than 30 years of being involved in the market, I have never ever seen a market so thinly led, with just a handful of companies doing the majority of the work. And I think that is very, very dangerous, in the sense that if those handful of companies stumble in any way, shape, or form, then we're going to have that pretty nasty pullback in the market. And you can see we've got a big opening to the downside here if the bears were to engage. Not saying that's going to happen. Stay with the upside trend, raise your stops, and protect yourself if that sell-off does start to begin. And I don't know when it would be or if it is even coming, but this smacks very much of a extremely extended run in the market. And so just make sure you're prepared and don't blindly chase into stocks and kind of trade that fear of missing out move in the market. Now, if we look at our T2108, our T2108 actually finished the day a little bit lower. Here again, that same theme. While we were running to the upside, we actually had a few more stocks turning just below their 40-day moving average yesterday. There's nothing bad here in this chart. You still have to give this to the bulls. They've been running in this upside trend, pushing up through some resistance levels in the chart. You got to give that to the bulls. But as we were ripping to the upside yesterday, there were still more stocks declining than going up. And if we take a look at our T2107, T2107 kind of shows us the same thing. We were essentially flat and just a tiny little bit lower in T2107, but you still have to give this to the bulls because they pushed up, tagged some resistance in the chart, maybe just resting back, still holding in that upside trend. So the bulls are in control, but don't get the idea that we were just wildly bullish across the board. It was a very select group of stocks that garnered all the attention. And then if we look at our T2101, well, T2101 did expand a little bit to the upside on that bullish wave. So again, you got to give that to the bulls. But I have to tell you, if we continue to stretch this market higher and higher and higher and higher and higher, and our breadth remains this weak, there's something wrong here. So watch that carefully here. Perhaps we will get a big surge in breadth today to the upside to really improve that a lot. We shall see, but at least we had a little bit of push through yesterday on that surge in those kind of select areas of the market. Watch that closely. Now, I would expect as we slip into the blackout period and corporate buybacks end, that actually could slip to the downside. So watch carefully for that possibility. Let's take a look at our earnings calendar here for today. Well, let's look at our economic calendar first. Our economic calendar, we've got a few things that we're going to want to be paying attention to, but not so much to be particularly worried. As you can see right here, today we've got mortgage applications coming in. We're going to get quarterly services survey, we're going to get petroleum status, and we've got some bond auctions, which might be interesting today since we're seeing those bond yields moving higher here this morning. Just keep an eye on that. And of course, this could have a substantial effect on those oil prices here today with that report that we could see supplies declining rather sharply. And it is pretty normal to have about the highest prices of the year come in around the drive season. Memorial Day is when everyone kind of thinks that is the case. And so we typically see gas prices rising toward that Memorial Day. Unfortunately, that puts us in a situation, if that is the case, that we could even see inflation be higher on our next reading of CPI unless something dramatically changes here in the market. Looking forward, remember, once we get through this, even though it's a light day today, we're going to be quickly thinking about these. Jobless claims, PPI, retail sales. Those are big numbers for tomorrow, and we'll want to be watching those. Those have that potential to really move the market to the upside or the downside. So don't be too surprised if today kind of ends up, after that big surge yesterday, kind of ends up being more of a hurry up and wait day here in the market. So watch that closely. If we take a look at our earnings calendar, well, again, we are fewer and fewer earnings are kind of going to come up because we're running into those blackout periods of the market, and we're going to have fewer companies reporting earnings because we're winding down the earnings season. So we lose a little bit of that inspiration here in the market. If we were to take a look here today, earnings that we're going to hear from, we've got Dollar Tree reporting this morning. Looks like a little bit of a disappointment there on Dollar Tree, moving sharply lower, possibly even breaking that trend here in the pre-market. Watch that one close. We're going to have ARCO reporting this morning. Whoops, that's not it. How about ARCO will be reporting this morning, so watch that. We're going to hear from Wolf this morning. We're going to hear from TH, WOW, and WSM, Williams-Sonoma, today. So pretty notable here on Williams-Sonoma, but looks like maybe just a little bit lower here heading into the open on its report. Then we're going to hear this afternoon, we've got another retail theme going on here. We're going to get Lennar this afternoon. We're going to get Sentinel here this afternoon, and we're going to get Path this afternoon. So keep an eye on those. I guess not so much retail. That's going to be in Thursday, where we pick up several retail reports. So let's take a look at some stocks that could be setting up. But before we do that, everyone, if this is the first time you've seen these videos, if you could please click that subscribe button on YouTube. Also click that bell icon when it pops up so you'll be notified every time I post a video. And if you find these videos to be useful or helpful, if you could do me that quick favor, and that would be click that thumbs up button, leave a brief comment. That helps the channel to continue to grow. Thank you so much, everyone who does take the time to do that. I appreciate it. Remember, even an emoji counts. I know it gets monotonous doing it day after day. For those of you that are loyally watching the videos every day, thank you. But please understand it does take quite a little bit of time to put these together. So just that little bit in there shows an awful lot of appreciation. And I personally thank you so much for taking that moment to do that, because it does help the channel. You guys are truly awesome. Let's take a look at some of these stocks setting up. Remember, guys, when we look at stock setting up, these are not recommendations to buy or sell any security. You need to follow your own guidance, your own rules of engagement here in the market. Make sure you're following your risk tolerances, and you should never ever follow someone else's trade ideas. You need to plan them yourself and make them your own. Just be careful. Don't blindly follow anyone else's trade ideas. Well, yesterday in that interesting move that we saw in bonds when the market was surging to the upside, I had mentioned TLT yesterday, and well, TLT gapped lower as those bond yields went up. And it looks like this morning we're still seeing a little bit of pressure here on TLT. What will be interesting is if we come up with any price support in here and we suddenly see a shift, that all of a sudden the market realizes, now wait a minute, as bond yields go up, that's not a good thing for the market. And if we were to see that still kind of catch in here on this trend and support area and see if we can push that back up. I'm not saying that's going to happen. The way the market's acting, it would seem to me that the rates could go to the moon, and they don't care. They just want to buy some big tech or AI or something like that. We'll see if that continues to play out, but watch that carefully. We're still in that zone of potential support here on TLT. If we were to drop through here, however, well, all bets are off on that if that were the case. So watch that closely here. If we take a look at those precious metals and commodity-based things here in the market, if we look at soybeans, soybeans continue to rally to the upside, even though we saw that weakening in the dollar really picking up here. Now, that's just that surge out of this downtrend, and this was quite a downtrend in soybeans. So watch that carefully. I don't want to be buying it here, but any rest or pullback in that chart would be a reason to buy. Notice we're testing the 50-day moving average, and I would really prefer that we get ourselves back up above that 50-day and hold that higher low here in the chart. But I probably would be okay with it, and I would consider it if we were to rest or consolidate like that along that 50-day and then push through. So watch that carefully there on soybeans, starting to show some good upside in the chart. If we take a look at sugar was also making that move here to the upside and trying to break this downtrend, but we found a little bit of resistance there yesterday. So it kind of depends on how that dollar reacts. But if we were to hold in here, might want to start looking at something in sugar. If we look at wheat, you can see wheat made that move. It is a long ways from coming back, but corn has made a nice move up through this downtrend, pushing up. So we're seeing some of those commodity-based prices moving up on that idea of a weakening dollar. They've really been surging. But if we see these bond yields continuing to expand to the upside and continue to get wider and wider, that dollar is going to weaken pretty quickly. And that might be an issue that keeps these stocks moving higher. So, or excuse me, if they expand to the upside, we'll see the dollar gain strength as those bond yields go up, and that would create this pullback in the chart. So we're going to have to watch that dollar pretty closely here. And speaking of the dollar, take a look at UUP. UUP kind of put in a hammer pattern yesterday. Interesting, while the bond yields were going up, we kind of hammered this out here just a touch. But remember, a hammer only counts as a bullish if we can candle, if we can get some follow through to it. A hammer that doesn't get any follow through is really worthless in these charts, and you will want to notice that we broke below some support and we are moving in a downtrend here, showing us that weakening of the dollar. But a short-term rally back up into here certainly wouldn't be a surprise, and we're seeing that possibility with the bond yields moving higher. And you could also take a look at that UDN in here. A big surge there on UDN. This is a US dollar bearish fund. Big surge up. I've been talking about this one breaking through some resistance here in the chart, and even breaking above that 50-day moving average here solidly, showing some strength in UDN. Again, weakening dollar situation, but that will change if the market ignores bond yields going higher. We could see that suddenly and quickly pull back. Now, as we look through all of those, we have to take note of some of the precious metal things out there in the market. And you can see we had a pretty substantial pullback here in GLD. We'll want to be watching that. This was a massive breakout here in gold. This is a multi-year breakout. So I wouldn't want to chase it here, but a little rest, a little pullback in here, then I'd have some interest in gold. Silver pressing a big resistance area in the chart. I don't think it's quite ready. I think it needs quite a little bit of rest back out into here, but I would watch that closely as it rests for that possibility of pushing on through. And then take a look at even aluminum pushing up here, breaking trends, pushing into a resistance. Now yesterday we pulled back. We're struggling with that resistance in here, but you'll notice back above that 50-day moving average and 200-day moving average, right in that area. So if we were to consolidate and rest in here, I think we could catch that moving average squeeze that may push us right on through here on aluminum to the upside. So watch that carefully. If we move on in the market and other places of the market, of course, you have to look at big tech, because that was the thing that moved the market the most yesterday. And NVIDIA, after this big surge yesterday, guess what? Caught another upgrade here in the market. And so watch for that possibility that NVIDIA could break right on through, make new record highs. It would appear that big old bearish engulfing candle meant absolutely nothing. That is, unless we were to happen to fail there and create the double top. But you've got to look at these charts because seems to be no price that people are not willing to pay for these companies. Take a look at Microsoft. Microsoft pushed up Tuesday, went ahead, yesterday, and is pushing up again this morning with the gap up open. We're breaking through resistance and downtrend here in the chart. So got to give this up to the bulls. They're really pushing tech back higher. If we take a look at Apple didn't have as much energy here in the market. This has been a pretty bearish looking pattern, still in that resting pattern. However, Google is surging back higher, but I would watch this resistance level here in the chart. That really looks to me like the next possibility of finding a short there. AMD, however, showing a very bullish pattern, kind of hammering yesterday, showing that bullishness. Any follow through in here might lead that on higher. I saw Intel trying to push up here. It isn't quite ready to break out of that downtrend, but I would watch that closely. I think IBM was an absolutely gorgeous pattern. I mentioned this yesterday, mentioned this early in the RWO session, which, by the way, guys, if you have an interest in seeing what we do over in Right Way Options, go to the Hit and Run Candlesticks website. You can pick up a 30-day trial to Right Way Options for less than the price of pizza. And then you can spend a whole 30 days with us, look at the strategies and things that we use in picking up some really nice profits in the market. So watch that, or come on over and take a look at us. We'd love to have you join us for at least a month to see if you're if we fit what you're thinking about for improving your market trading. If we take a look at IBM here, very, very strong. You really have to say, man, that's a pretty chart, and every reason to believe that that can push on through. And if we pull this back, and I'm going to go to a weekly, you can see what we could be attacking here as all-time highs here in IBM. So watch that potential breakout that could come if we can continue to stretch on up. Walmart is another on the retail side of things. Beautiful chart. We talked about this. Nice little pattern in here, stretching on higher. New record highs in Walmart. Everyone is loving the Wally World shopping, apparently, continuing to stretch on up and looking really, really good. When we look in that oil sector, take a look at stocks in that oil sector like XLE here. If you want a basket of stocks, you know I've been talking about this. We're seeing those oil prices going up as the dollar weakens. And if that trend continues, well, there's every reason to believe that we could see more upside. And when we're talking about that possibility that supplies are falling, oil prices could go even higher here. So watch that carefully. If we were to just jump over here to the components that make up XLE, there's a lot of good looking charts in here. Devon, Phillips 66 breaking through to new highs, Valero Energy trying to pop major resistance levels in the chart. So Halliburton moving up. You saw that MPC breaking out and going even higher. There are a lot of good looking charts here to be paying attention to in that oil and gas sector, so watch that closely. And then I'm going to suggest that we keep an eye on what's going on here in the banks. The banks continue to surge up, which is really surprising to me as we see bond yields going up, but they continue to surge higher here. That's a very, very bullish pattern. Every reason to believe that that can continue at the moment. I will be watching this pretty carefully for some kind of a breakdown here eventually, but right now bulls are in control on that, and they're even in control right now on the regional banks. We don't have any fear here in the regional banks as well, breaking that downtrend, pushing through some resistance here in the chart. Now yesterday we did fail that a little bit. Remember, we've got a court hearing coming up in Hong Kong. Country Garden is being asked to have a wind-up order hearing. Wind-up order means a liquidation of one of their biggest. Evergrande was one, and now we're looking at potential Country Garden, and there's several more wind-up orders moving into the court system in Hong Kong. So we'll want to be watching that carefully here. If that real estate situation in China continues to deteriorate, it has an effect on our regional banks. So watch that carefully. We did pull back a little bit in here, but notice we get this bit of an upside trend going right there. So bulls are still in control on those stocks. So there's plenty for you to look at. I would keep an eye on things like big surges, big things have been happening here in some of our drug makers. Pfizer setting up. You guys know I'm in BMY. getting close to a 30% profit here in my BMY position. Continues to look good, expecting a rest or pullback here at any time. And then who knows, I may add to that. But quite a few of those stocks are looking very, very strong in that big pharma area of the market. So with that, everyone, I want to wish you all a fantastic day. Thank you so much for being here. I very much appreciate it. Apologize for running long, but there's so many things moving in the market right now. I want to cover a lot of that. And I want to wish you all the very, very best today. Thanks, everyone. Take care. I'll see you right back here bright and early Thursday morning.